This is Keys to the Shop, Founder Friday edition. Today we're hearing from 4 past guests about how they meet people where they are. Well, hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. My name is Chris DiFirio. I am your host for the show. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me today. And really quick, if you would just hit subscribe wherever you're getting this podcast, that way you'll always be up to date with new episodes. Just take a moment right now and then click the button and go right back to listening to me. Perfect. Thank you. I really appreciate that, and it'll really be helpful because we come up with a lot of great episodes every month, awesome guests and awesome content. I don't want you to miss out on that. And also, if you would share these episodes with a friend, that would really help the show spread to more areas of the globe. More coffee professionals can benefit from these episodes. So share it far and wide with your friends, with your team. Thank you, everybody, for doing that. Now, Keys to the Shop, on top of doing this podcast, also offers consulting and coaching for you and your business. With Keys to the Shop Consulting, you get to work directly with me to help you start your coffee business off on the right foot, avoid needless mistakes, build great foundations for success. Or if you're already an operator of a coffee bar, but you want to level things up, or maybe you're having some problems that you need solved, or you're scaling the business and you want to go about it the right way, there's a lot of ways that Keys to the Shop Consulting can work with you and your business to help you reach new levels of excellence in your people, quality, and operations. It's what I love to do, and it's why I do this podcast. And so if that's interesting to you, if you want to have a conversation about that, just email me, chris@keystotheshop.com. We'll set up a free discovery call and see if working with Keys to the Shop Consulting is right for you. Again, that email for Keys to the Shop Consulting, chris@keystotheshop.com. Now, today's episode is brought to you by the Ground Control Cyclops brewer from Vogue Coffee. I absolutely love this brewer. I love the people behind it. What it's doing for the coffee industry, I think, is nothing short of revolutionary. It's the next stage in evolution for batch brew coffee, in my opinion. And it's all thanks to the SCA award-winning technology that allows you to control the extraction of an incredible range of flavors that previously you were limited in technology. You couldn't really get to those things, but now you can, and predictably so. So there's a lot of consistency as well. Your coffee will shine like it never has before. And this is not just a batch brewer. It's also something that makes tea, batched iced lattes, batch cold brew. So people who own the Ground Control use it across their menu for efficiency and that level up in quality. Go visit them over at groundcontrol.coffee for more information. If you want to up your quality and your efficiency and look really good doing it, then I recommend you get a Ground Control Cyclops brewer for your store. Again, for more information, go visit them over at groundcontrol.coffee. Today's episode is also brought to you by the Pacific Barista Series. This is the line of plant-based performance beverages that is trusted by the top professionals in coffee the world over because it was made for them. It was made for professional baristas and their strict demands that they have for how a plant-based beverage should perform, to highlight the coffee, to stand up to the heat from steaming, to really create great texture so they can make latte art in all of the beverages. This is something that is extremely balanced and formulated for real use on the bar, and it shows in the fact that the Barista Series is just the standard worldwide for plant-based beverages. I think you're really going to love this, and so will your customers. So again, if you want to provide the best plant-based beverage experience possible in your coffee shop, then I think you need to be using the Barista Series from Pacific. Okay, everybody. Well, today is a special Founder Friday. We've done one of these episodes in the past, and these are kind of what I'm calling curated episodes, where I'm taking a theme and I'm going back into past Founder Friday interviews and kind of getting some insights from these experts that we've interviewed over the years about that subject. And I'm really wanting to hear from people about the subject of meeting people where they are. You know, we talk about hospitality a lot on the show, and in that conversation, there's a lot that we can discuss around hospitality geared towards, our staff as well as the customer. And we are all about accessibility, especially these days in coffee. We've built up this giant industry that sometimes can be intimidating. And in today's Founder Friday, we're going to be hearing from 4 past Founder Friday guests about how they approach approachability and accessibility and meeting people where they are. And they come at it from a few different angles, but all with some incredible insights that I think are going to be helpful for how you decide to move forward with it in your own shop and in your own career. The 4 guests that we're going to be listening to in order is Matt Chitharanjan and Namrata Asthana of Blue Tokai Coffee Roasters in India, followed by Dorian Bolden of Beyu Cafe in Durham, North Carolina. We're then going to hear from Daniel Brown and Nephthaly Leonidas of Gilly Brew Bar in Stone Mountain, Georgia. And then we're going to finish these interviews with Andrew Sinclair of Madlab Coffee in Los Angeles, California. So again, in this first clip, we're talking with Matt Chitharanjan and Namrata Asthana of Blue Tokai Coffee Roasters. This was a fantastic interview as we talked about how they established one of the most respected roasters in India, Blue Tokai Coffee Roasters. And it's part of the reason why Indian people are switching from instant coffee and they now drink more amazing Indian coffees, of which there are a lot of different varieties to choose from. They had humble beginnings working together in roasting from their home, and now they have over 25 cafes, over 300 staff, and have partnered with over 25 Indian coffee estates and farms. And the clip that I chose here from this conversation is all about how they practically went about getting people to go from instant to specialty in ways that respected where they were in their understanding about coffee. I love this whole conversation. Of course, we're going to link to all of these episodes in the show notes, so you should just click on this and the others to listen to the full episodes after you listen to these clips. But let's hear now from Matt and Namrata of Blue Tokai Coffee Roasters in India about how they meet their customers where they are.
We started getting these emails from like a demographic group that was probably like much older, in much smaller cities in parts of India that we would never have considered would be even interested in our coffee. And they were very upfront, and they said, look, we run a guest house, or hey, I heard about your coffee. All we have right now is just instant coffee. We've never had any of this before. So how do we make it? And then from there, we have this sort of gateway coffee making process where we tell people, you can make coffee. It's basically cowboy coffee, but everybody in India drinks chai or tea. Mm-hmm. And so they have a sieve and they have all the equipment that you need to make cowboy coffee. So we basically say just use all the tea making equipment you have to brew yourself a cup of coffee. And then you'll have to experiment a little bit, based on what flavor you're looking for. And then, come back and tell us how you like it. And so many people then over, the following months or years, like go back to us and then start ordering like a mocha pot grind. Then they start ordering a French press grind. And so you could kind of see that they had changed how they were brewing coffee. And then from starting very small and, making sure that we didn't push them to invest in any coffee making material that they would never use, they went from using their tea making equipment to then actually purchasing like a French press. And then, it was really exciting to actually be able to see that change in people who've been buying from us for like a year and a half.
And you didn't force it. You like you said, you just kind of didn't try to upsell them. Yeah, they completely evolved over time. And it's so brilliant to meet them where they are with the implements they already had in their house. And I'm sure that had you not done that and just tried to push the French press on people, you probably wouldn't have gotten the results you did.
Completely. And I think one of the things Matt and I were very, very clear about from when we started was that, specialty coffee can seem so intimidating and just seems so sort of like, oh my God, like these people are somewhat, trying to act superior or like, just like on a different level. And one of the things that we knew is that we had to make it approachable. And the only way you can make it approachable is exactly like what you're saying, like meeting people where they are and like making them as comfortable with what they have to try an experience that's new and then just see where it takes them. And then maybe, you hope that they'll be able to like, experiment a little bit more and a little bit more. But we didn't take it for granted. But now, for sure, we can say that a ton of people in India are just so experimental with their coffee that we've really been surprised. And it's been great.
we at the same time, we still get regular feedback or emails from customers where they're saying, oh, there's something wrong with this coffee. It's the worst roast I've ever had. I've tried using hot water. I've tried using cold water. It's just not dissolving. What did you guys do?
Yeah.
So the people get excited about the brand or they hear about specialty coffee and then they try it and they expect it to be instant.
But even for those people, I feel like we've always told them, like, hey, this is not instant, but you can try doing this. And like, I would say like a very large portion of them do try it, and they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I think people are definitely experimental and willing to try out in that way.
Awesome.
But there's definitely like an ongoing educational like journey uphill, like constantly. You're just constantly having to tell people that it's not instant and that's good. I mean, I feel like that is exactly what we thought we were getting into. And the fact that we're, every month, like coming across so many more people who are willing to experiment, going from instant to brewed, that it's just really exciting.
You're up against a lot of just ingrained behavior and marketing too, because you're not the only people marketing coffee.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, it's frustrating when you turn on the TV and you see like an advertisement for Nescafe or this other instant brand called Brew, and it's like freshly roasted beans, and they have the beans falling in the background and the grinder going, and it's like, taste the real coffee. It's just like, come on. It's already hard enough. You guys don't have to pile on.
I imagine that part of the way that you train people in hospitality in your stores has an emphasis on meeting people where they're at, in the same way that you've done with creating this gateway coffee method through Cowboy Coffee, and not trying to sort of force things on people. Is that some part of how you instruct your baristas and managers, et cetera, to operate within the stores?
Yeah, absolutely. We're very much of the opinion that you should have your coffee the way that you like it. We can make suggestions, but ultimately we want you to have a beverage that you're happy with. So if you want to put 4 scoops of sugar in your coffee, please go ahead. If you want to have a dark roast espresso, then we'll give you a dark roast, and we just want that coffee to have been sourced according to our standards and roasted according to our standards. There's actually a concept in India called piping hot, where people want to have their beverages scalding. And so,
which is how they drink their tea.
Yeah. And so we heat our coffees to 65 degrees, and then sometimes a customer will say, this isn't hot enough. And so then the baristas are trained to say, we heat the milk to this temperature because that maximizes the perceived sweetness, and this is how we think it should be had. But try it, and if you don't like it, we'll scald it for you, no problem. We'll replace that coffee with the piping hot one. Because ultimately, I think that it's, as Namrata said, it's quite alienating if you walk into a shop and people are very pedantic in the way that they're delivering this beverage to you. Specialty coffee is already such a niche here that adding on this kind of snootiness, I think, is just not helpful.
That all comes down to how the culture is of your stores, and with 300 some odd baristas, and how many retail locations now?
We have 25 stores.
So 25 stores, all staffed and operating, interacting with customers on a daily basis. There's so much happening in those exchanges, and curating the culture is a pretty difficult task. How does the system work for having that many stores and making sure that the experience is similar between all of them? I imagine you obviously have managers in each store. What does it look like organizationally for you to ensure some similarity between all of them, that you can kind of sleep at night knowing people are representing your brand well to these consumers?
So we have a few different layers within the store of people at different skill levels who check up and make sure that sort of the SOPs are being followed. There's shift managers, and then store managers, then area managers and city managers. We also have the trainers spend a lot of time within the stores. So we have 6-people training team, and they do audits, but then they also spend part of their week is spent in the stores working hands-on with the staff. We're in the process of creating an IoT system that records the dose, the shot time, and the shot weight across all of the cafes. So once we have that, that'll at least ensure that at least that aspect is consistent and standardized across all the cafes.
So what equipment are you using to accomplish that?
We're using, we've developed some sensors that go in Akaya scales, and we've created a dashboard that links up to these sensors.
Excellent. Wow. Way to go. When you're talking about all these layers of management, everybody is sort of having different meetings, I imagine, with each other. Who do you interact with, and how does that information or direction that you want the companies to go get disseminated?
So I think one thing that was like really important to us was the diversity of people who are working for us. India is like incredibly diverse as a country, and people speak different languages. So we interact with mainly the city heads and the senior cafe managers. But all the communication that goes out to everybody, we try to make sure that it's not just in English, because English is probably in the north, in the south, and in the west, I feel like people are very strong in their English speaking skills. But I think in the north, more people speak Hindi and like other languages. So we try to make sure that any communication or educational material we put forward is translated into different languages to take into account that everybody understands where we're coming from. And we try and explain the ethos of like what any like new procedure, like what that was founded on. So I think that has been really, really important for us to create a culture where people feel really comfortable with interacting with other customers as well, is to explain why all of this stuff is happening. I think for us, it's a given that people haven't worked in an environment like this before, where there's no hierarchy, and that you're not supposed to be afraid. There is like such a strange fear culture here. And so we try to do our best to make sure that everybody is comfortable to ask questions and to understand why these rules exist, or, like how it's okay to interact with customers and all of that.
You mean fear of authority?
Yes, like fear of authority. And I think for baristas, traditionally, customers have always been in a much higher position. So, explaining something to a customer, for example, I feel like traditionally would be like, oh my God, I can't do that. People will think that they know everything, and then I'm kind of attacking them in a way. And so I'm always really moved whenever I go to any cafe and like people are super friendly and like they're talking to customers and interacting with them. That makes me feel so good, because there's definitely like a very strong sense of self that each of these baristas has. And I've seen baristas who, when they join, especially like female baristas, I feel when they join are like very, very demure. They're very quiet. They won't talk. And then over time, as I visit the cafe, you could see them like talking so much more and like really coming out of their shell. And that really makes me feel good.
Well, I hope that you enjoyed that clip from Matt and Namrata from Blue Tokai Coffee Roasters in India. That was episode 171 on Founder Friday, so be sure to go back and listen to the entire episode. Next up, we have Dorian Bolden of Beyu Cafe in Durham, North Carolina. Beyu Cafe was designed to be the ultimate community gathering place. That's their mission. And they've been serving Durham through great coffee, cocktails, food, and jazz for over 10 years. And since the episode 108 on Keys to the Shop back in 2019, it has expanded beyond just that one shop. Dorian is a community pillar, and in this conversation, we talked all about the founding, development, and what went into Beyu Cafe and how he developed as an owner through the process. And what I found very special about this episode and why I chose it today is because Dorian focuses on something in this conversation that I've used as an example for the years after this with clients and talking to people at Coffee Fest. And that's the focus on values and how those values translate to how we treat each other and treat customers. And not only that, but how we treat ourselves. So we're going to hear from Dorian about the establishment of values at Beyu Cafe and how they translate to our behaviors and reactions to things that happen in the cafe. And then also critically, he's going to talk about how he's cared for himself and how critical that is for caring for other people as well. So here's a clip from episode 108, Founder Friday with Dorian Bolden of Beyu Cafe.
How do you lead by example? One of my earlier mentors, and again, that's probably something I recommend to any of your listeners, anybody starting a business, is don't be afraid to ask somebody, find somebody who's done this before, and just try to meet with them quarterly. I mean, if you can monthly, great. But I was fortunate to have some amazing mentors over the years. So, one in particular at the very beginning, she and her brother owned several restaurants, and she would tell me, you need to know your non-negotiables. What are the things you will not negotiate on? And, it's funny, I'm thinking about this, well, what are my non-negotiables? I mean, is there thou shalt not steal? I mean, it's kind of like, your non-negotiables. It's kind of simple. But what she was meant, though, were what are your core values? And now, almost 10 years later, we have our mission statement in terms of what's our purpose as, the ultimate community gathering place. And that is our mission statement. And we make sure, everybody knows that. And when new people, our new hires, our new team members are coming in, I'll stop and say, hey, look, what's the mission statement? Do you know it? And if not, okay, I need to make sure you understand why. And because of that is, they need to understand that, here it is. We have, someone like maybe Miss Shirley who, is homeless, but when she comes in, we treat her with the level of dignity and respect that we treat the venture capitalists that are sitting, 3 tables down on a business deal. People who come in and they have money to spend, unless they're causing a disturbance or, unless for some, rare circumstance, this is their place to be you. And I think that has really served us well because everybody comes in with that understanding of the ultimate community gathering place. And you're right. I think that's one thing that I've just lived, and practiced just more easily because that is the essence of Beyu Cafe. But then the core values, I think we've developed and evolved over time with the nature of great people that have come through our doors and really help solidify, what we really are about as an organization, as a culture. And for that is, we make sure we go beyond customer service and not, of course, in retail, that can be hard to do sometimes, but still that's what we're about. We are about, teamwork always. We realize that some places, some people just work better by themselves and aloners. We're really team oriented and we expect that. So people who don't pitch in and don't help out, they don't necessarily really last long. Financial accountability means growth. We are really, that's from just my finance days. I love smart people and I love people smarter than me. I mean, I want smart people. I want to teach people, make sure that they know we're going to hold them financially accountable. The reason we're able to take on this opportunity, at Duke is because of, our ability to and grow is because we've been able to hold each other accountable financially, especially over the past 2 years, bringing in, smarter and greater leadership as well as we've grown. No shortcuts, really having pride in what we do. And then it's funny, the one that everybody loves the most is, no ego, just be you. Mm. And, even have a little tagline. We say, unless you're an asshole, then be you someplace else. and I think, that really is the essence of, no ego because, it's not about us. It's not about me. It's not about you. It really is about the greater good, the greater community. And it's so easy to lose sight of that, especially in today's society. And so I think a lot of times it's reminding the people that come in that, look, I get it. Things happen, especially things outside of work, but let's try to make sure we support each other. Remember, it's not about us. Let's make sure we're trying to do the job at hand, that we're trying to do something better for the community, for each other, and let's have fun while we work. And I think over the years, we've been able to just really develop a great culture of people, of an organization, which in the past 2 years has really skyrocketed. I think as I've become a lot more purposeful in finding people around those core values now that we've really solidified them. like 2 years ago. And so now we preach to our core values. We preach to our mission statement. We preach to our culture. And, you hear a lot of these organizations and these companies and these books say, what is it? Culture beats strategy for breakfast. Culture eats strategy for breakfast, or beat strategy for breakfast.
Yeah.
But it really is so much about that that's the one thing I wish I had known when I first started, the importance of finding the right people and building the right culture, because the right culture will be there and they will help you define what you want to do to figure things out. And so, I think that's probably the biggest reason for our longevity and our growth.
So I imagine with all that you have going on, of course, talking about those values and talking about your mission is, like you said, it's your main mode of keeping things together and having the right people there. It's got to be the same kind of thing that when you were in that position of just, getting buried in operations and not able to see the financials. And for a lot of people that are delegated to take care of booking or to take care of the wait staff or whatever it may be that is on their plates, it must be hard to always have that in mind. And so that just really is great that it's a constant stream of reminding, because I imagine it's especially with the 4 models all at once, easy to just get buried and feel like, what am I even doing, and forget about the mission statement.
So it's funny, right? If all this, we're actually in the process of printing it out for all these years, because as much as we practice and we preach, it's like, wow, we're actually printing it out, and it's like putting on the door. Everybody sees it on the way out, and it is. I think that's the nature of business, and I think that's also still what separates businesses that sometimes grow faster from those who don't, in terms of being able to try to find that balance. And looking back on it now, I realized being able to make time, and that's the thing that sometimes business owners, and myself included, when I first started, you feel like there's never enough time. And I think there's one thing that at least for me, that I've kind of made it a goal that anytime I feel like I don't have enough time for something, then I do what I can to try to make myself to create more time to make a right decision, so that I don't feel hurried. Of course, there are times you got to make a quick decision, and of course you do that. But, again, I think that's why I close on Sundays, to make sure I don't lose sight of, my family time. Or, I started working out about when I was going through the development project to move into our new home. I remember that at that point, like soon after, I really went hard, started, working out with a trainer, and, I lost things like close to about 60 pounds.
Wow.
And part of that was just really making sure I made time for my wellness and well-being, just my mental state, and just for health. And so I think the ability to start forcing yourself to have balance allows you to make smarter decisions. And I think that's the one thing, is so often we feel hurried, and if you feel tired and continuously you feel like there's just never enough time, a lot of times that can lead to stress and it leads to bad decisions. And of course your staff can pick up on that. Mm-hmm. And so I think being able to take care of yourself is so important. I can tell you right now, that is by far one of the greatest competitive advantages you will ever have over someone else, is that if you know how to take care of yourself, take care of your mental state, so that when you come in, you're coming in with a smile. Like that alone is saying, hey, how was your day? How did it go last night? Or when someone, Jesus, today, I had to work a shift today, filling in, and one of our staff members, great guy, he's been with us for over 3 years, and he gets a little flustered, and today get a little flustered and just spilled a whole thing of ranch on both of us, all over my leg. It was like in the dish pit, and it's just like, okay, I am covered in ranch. In the trash can is literally 10 centimeters away. It's right there, but okay. So, and you end up laughing about it, and and that's the thing about, I just noticed, is I think being able to take care of myself and put things in perspective and have that balance that allows me to have fun with my staff, allows me to have fun with my leadership team. And so, yeah, if you're not having fun in your business, man, I'm telling you, work on that, because that I lost that at one point, Chris. I mean, that was the one thing I remember getting to a point where it wasn't fun anymore. And we didn't have the right culture. I was stressed all the time, but, being able to work on myself and started remembering why I'm in this from the very beginning, what we talked about, kind of the rosy picture, it really has propelled our business in the past couple of years.
Well, I hope what Dorian shared today really resonated with you. Again, that was episode 108, Founder Friday with Dorian Bolden of Beyu Cafe. Be sure to listen to that full episode because Dorian shares a lot more wisdom with us in that episode. Next here, we are going to be hearing from Daniel Brown and Nephthaly Leonidas of Gilly Brew Bar in Stone Mountain, Georgia. This is one of those episodes that I thought just kind of transcended the normal conversation, in that the whole point of Gilly Brew Bar is that, as they say, it's not a coffee bar. It's something different. It's highly relational. It's story based. They formed this as a way to change the narrative of what it means to be a coffee company, with the point of serving their community side by side with their staff. They're very unique in that they serve coffee and tea elixirs to storytell. And that's one of the primary connecting points at Gilly Brew Bar. And it's a fascinating part of this conversation that I chose to feature in today's Curated Founder Friday, because when we think of connecting with customers, we often just think about, having a good service experience, but they take it a step further and go deeper and really speak to human needs. When people go into a space like a cafe or coffee bar or brew bar, they're also needing, beyond the coffee, some connection, some element of relational refreshment. And I think that what Daniel and Nephthaly have created with Gilly Brew Bar is a really innovative way to meet people where they are and have them leave their experience just feeling amazing. So that's why I chose this one today. So that was episode 279 from Founder Friday back in 2021. So here now is a clip from that episode of Founder Friday with Daniel Brown and Nephthaly Leonidas of Gilly Brew Bar.
We both come from Caribbean families. I mean, I don't know what Caribbean family wouldn't say or agree with that. When someone is sick in the family, you're going to try and create some kind of concoction to help relieve them or cure them. And growing up constantly, I just recall so many moments, so many memories of these teas or natural herbs brewed into something. Sometimes it didn't even necessarily taste that good, or maybe it was too strong or whatever. But I know whatever it was that they gave me, it helped with whatever symptom that I was feeling. And I mean, that's not speaking against prescribed medication. Those things help relieve as well. But from a Caribbean standpoint, we tend to go with more natural ingredients. So I think that's kind of where the concept stemmed from, wanting to create a product. Because coffee, in a lot of ways, I view that as a medicine. My first experiences with coffee was because of asthma that I was diagnosed with. And again, instead of taking the pump as the doctor recommended, my mom would give me a cup of black coffee, because who in the world knew, like, that helps to open up your chest cavity.
Nice.
I would be able to breathe better, so instead of creating a beverage that was just really tasty, I also wanted to tie it with how many healing properties it has as well. So I think that's why we call them elixirs, as opposed to, like, most people initially would call it like a mocktail. But yeah, we refer to them as elixirs because we see it as a medicinal substance. And then early on, I think, because it's so bizarre, I knew we would have to do something pretty amazing and with excellence to try and engage people with wanting to try these crazy beverages. And so what Neff and I did was just kind of pull from resources, certain friends we've had. We have a lot of creative friends who have so much skill with like videography, cinematography, photography.
Yeah.
And we said, okay, in order to really push this concept, we have to make it appealing. And so instead of just describing, hey, we got this really cool drink, which has lemonade and coffee, we'll show them a picture of it and they'd be like, whoa. Like
Yeah.
at first I didn't think this would taste so well, but it looks really good. So that's kind of how we drew people in. I don't know if you have anything to share now.
Yeah. Daniel covered a lot of it. And in terms of just how we continue with it now, like the process of it now, it's always attached to a story. Storytelling is, we do that a lot. It's pretty foundational for Gilly. And so we're often pausing to think about what's happening in our lives, what's happening around us. And we create these beverages, these elixirs, based off of the story that we feel like needs to be told in that season. And oftentimes the stories are for us. I can tell you countless times in which we're telling the story to our customers and they're gravitating towards it and they're like, man, this is so powerful. This is different. I've never experienced anything like this. And in my mind, and I know Daniel's mind, I'm like, yeah, this is what's helping us get through. We're getting through. So, yeah.
Well, what would be an example of one of those elixirs that is attached to a story?
Oh, man. Danny, you want to talk about Steep Life? You got it, D.
No, that's your favorite. Go for it.
That is my favorite. Probably because I think we're in the heat of so much at that time, or just coming off the back of just craziness. And it was just getting to spring and we're feeling like we can breathe. And so this particular elixir season, we steeped, it was about like teas. All of it was teas. And we called it Steep Life because in order for you to pull the best flavor out of a tea, you have to steep it in hot water. And as like a team and a company and a bar, we felt like our entire concept, our lives was being steeped in just fire. But it was ultimately pulling out the best flavors. Did we know that at that time or feel that way? Probably not. And so we attach, again, we use a lot of scripture in what we, in how we storytell. And so like Steep Life for us was a reminder of the flavors that come out when tea bags have to sit in fire, and just the trial by fire that you endure and being purified as gold. So that's just a little bit of it.
Yeah, we did another season called The One, and such a beautiful collection that really focused on another scripture where it illustrates leaving 99 to chase after one who goes astray. That's pretty much the messaging. And yeah, I mean, that one was really, really cool. We had some really unorthodox flavors with those ones as well. We had one that incorporated Parmesan cheese. That was Neff's idea. Once we discover like what our theme is, we try to think of flavors that will help us to articulate the message. For example, the theme that I was talking about, The One, we had one that was called 99 Problems. And so because the theme was about a shepherd who left 99 sheep to go after the one who left, it was like our idea to create a shepherd's pie in the form of a beverage. And so that's why we incorporated the cheese. It had like a corn husk garnish, and we did a rim on it with like cornstarch. I mean, it was just like
wow. So you're process in creating these is very deeply personal, and because of that, it's reflecting what you and your team are going through. But at the same time, when you're talking about that, we've built an entire industry on tapping into the needs of our customers, and we talk about that. There's books, seminars, and things, but some of the needs that people have as people are rarely ever tapped into, because we keep it to the formulas that we know produce profit. And so, yeah, I can't help but think that the people who interact with this are maybe perplexed at first, but then, won over by the fact that it's not just a great drink and service, but also it speaks to something that hasn't been spoken to before.
I think going back to being people that are involved in the community allows us to storytell from a deeply personal place, but that personal place is not apart from the community that we're actually in. So oftentimes when we're experiencing something, we notice that others are experiencing the same thing, just in a different way, right? And so I think my favorite part about being behind the bar back when we used to be at the bar more often, that's not as frequent these days, but something that we strive to do. It's a value of ours to not outgrow the bar and to always be present. So we are definitely intentional about being there, but we used to have these incredible conversations with our customers that would leave both of us just emotional, just by the way they were touched by these drinks or the stories they would tell us about their lives. It's wild. It's one of my favorite parts about being in this industry is the stories we get to hear and hold, and the people we get to know, and legitimately, I love each and every last person that has become a friend from the shop, and just even the people that walk in today, just always excited about, I don't know, just meeting them. And I think our elixirs have given us that opportunity to do that, to really connect in deep ways with our customers.
Well, what an amazing example of not only meeting people where they are, but helping them meet you where you are. And what they're doing with their menu is showing who they are. They're putting out a story, and it's resonating with a deeper part of their community. And I think that that's a really great way to serve and promote change in a deep and visceral way. There's a lot of emotional labor that goes into work at a coffee bar, and we often feel like we've got to protect our emotions. And in this case, it feels like the emotional element of work is on display as sort of the point, and one of the things that really endears people to Gilly Brew Bar, certainly the thing that attracted me to their story and having them on the show. So be sure to listen to that full episode 279 of Founder Friday with Daniel Brown and Nephthaly Leonidas of Gilly Brew Bar. Now, our last episode clip of a Founder Friday episode is going to feature Andrew Sinclair of Madlab Coffee in Los Angeles, California. Andrew's been in coffee for over a decade, from an enthusiast to a barista, head barista, manager, owner, and operator. Now, he's operated Madlab since 2015. And one of the cool things about Madlab is their mission statement, which is to love people a whole lot more instead of a whole lot less, and to push everyone that encounters their coffee and them to be the person that they needed when they were younger. And so you can tell right away that this is not just about creating great coffee and producing amazing latte art and, showing, pretty pictures of yourself on Instagram doing so. This is more about what you are showing in terms of your care daily for your staff and for your customers. And that's the clip that I chose from this, really one of the best Founder Fridays that we've had, I think. Just because of how authentic and passionate Andrew is as a person. The clip is basically two clips together, but it's covering how Andrew approaches care for staff who work in his company, Madlab, and then how he sees his mission as an operator and a coffee business to care for the people of the community, and how he communicates that to his staff and the practical things that they do to make sure that the interactions that customers have with them don't leave them feeling embarrassed for not knowing about coffee, or saying the wrong things and being judged. You might say that Andrew is trying to create the epitome of what an approachable coffee bar should be, and a place where people can feel free to be themselves, to feel like they can ask questions and be welcomed by these coffee professionals who genuinely care for their well-being as they make them their coffee. And I really appreciate that about Andrew and Madlab. And so that's why we chose these clips here. So this Founder Friday was back in 2021 in September, episode 305. You should, of course, like I say about everyone, listen to this Founder Friday. Please do. Here is the clip from that Founder Friday with Andrew Sinclair of Madlab Coffee.
And, that's something I really learned about, managing people at the cafe level. It was an opportunity, right? It was an opportunity to sit back and say, wow, okay, cool. We get to support you right now. What do you need? Right? Because in LA, if you're in a rough spot, it's a really rough spot. Yeah. And it's hard to get out of it. It is so hard to get out of it. People don't really know how hard this city can be. I mean, dude, this is the city where people move to work on their dreams, to be the next big person. Right. And there's so much here in the city, but it's so also incredibly lonely, and it's so hard to make a living here, and so hard to pay rent and live in this vacation lifestyle that is Southern California. So having the support of an entire industry around you, man, it makes it a little bit easier.
I love that perspective of, the opportunity to support somebody. And you can come at it from a couple of different angles, right? A lot of people will say that, and it's not like it's easy to have to manage people. Managing people can be and is very difficult a lot of times.
Oh, yeah.
But having the perspective of, that being an opportunity to serve or to support is kind of a game changer, because that doesn't it seems like it would prevent you from burnout, or at least prevent burnout from happening as soon.
Yeah, I mean, but burnout is when you keep doing the same thing over and over and over, and you don't see anything good come out of it, right? That's just burnout. If you keep doing the same thing over and over again, and you don't see anything coming out of it, that's when you're going to start getting burnt out. And I think the opportunity that owners, managers, wherever you are in the totem pole where you're taking care of people, to realize, man, where is this burnout coming from is the more important thing, right? What are they not getting here that I could be giving them, right? Is it opportunity? Is it pay? Is it, financial freedom? What is it exactly that's causing them to get burned out? Because, dude, coffee's fun. Coffee's fun. There are so many different things that you can do in coffee. How are people getting burnt out? Are we getting burnt out because we're having to deal with some really weird customers right now? Oh, okay. Well, someone's getting burnt out because of that. Well, hey, let's find something that's not customer facing for you to do that you really enjoy, that's good for the company, and let's figure that out together, right? That's an opportunity to do something that's good for that person, but also good for your company at the same time. And I think right now, after the last 2 years, oh my gosh, we're tired. We're tired of some of that burnt out of being, customer facing. Because let's just be honest, some customers are just terrible. I mean, and some baristas, sometimes they're terrible, and you got to just hold people by the hand sometimes and say, "Hey, Bubba, what's going on?" Whether it be a customer or barista, and usually it's just people that are going through something, and you just got to slow everybody down and say, "Well, what's going on? Let's talk about it. What can we figure out that makes you happy?" That gets you in this mind space of everything's going to be all right, whether it be a customer or be an employee. So in those early days of Madlab, I spent just a lot of time listening. Just like, hey, I'm going to listen. What do you want? How do you want it? Age old kind of example. Somebody comes in and asks for a caramel macchiato, right? a lot of coffee people say, well, do you mean the Starbucks version or do you mean what we do? You know so well what they're talking about. They want a large sugary drink with a little bit of coffee and a lot of milk, and it's like really sweet. Make them that drink and look at them and say, hey, I don't have that exact thing, but I know what you're talking about. Try this. If you don't like it, you don't got to pay for it, right? That was kind of, the way that we did things at the shop that I was running, and to the shop that I started working at when I learned roasting. And I kind of took that mindset whenever I started Madlab, just listening to people like, hey, what kind of coffee are you looking for, right? And people say, well, I'm looking for a coffee that's just sweet. I just want something sweet. I kept hearing that over and over and over and over again. I just want a coffee that just tastes like fruit, because coffee's a fruit, right? And you'd be like, you know what, pal? It sure is. Let me get on that. Let me figure that out for you. And so after a while, a few of us roasters started roasting like that, right? And then customers started buying our coffees over other coffees. All of a sudden, all these other coffee companies started changing what they were doing in Los Angeles versus what they were doing in other places. Intelligentsia, a great example. If you have a cup of coffee from the roastery in Chicago versus a cup of coffee from the roastery in Los Angeles, it is very different. It is very different. And I think most roasters that have tried 2 bags from those 2 different roasteries would tell you it's different. And I think a lot of that is because the work that a lot of us did locally years ago of saying like, hey, what are we doing for our neighborhood, right? Are we giving our neighbors the product that they're asking us for? Or are we going to continue trying to just force a coffee down their throat that they don't want to drink? I mean, we can only tell people so many different type of lemons are in a bag of coffee, right? We can only do so much. And and you start to notice those things, even me, if I have some customers on, in New York, right? I know exactly what that customer's wanting. They'll call me and say, hey, Andrew, listen, this coffee, you got to leave it in that roaster for a little bit longer, bud. I said, okay, no problem. And we'll do that. If you ask us, we'll do that, because we want to give you the thing that you want, something that you're excited to serve, something that your customers are excited to drink. And you should never have this weird speech from behind bar that's, listen, Karen, let me tell you how we do things at Java the Hutt, okay? This is the type of, we should never be having those conversations. We should just be able to hear a customer say, hey, I'm looking for something like this. And I say, okay, gotcha. That'll be $4. I don't understand why it's so hard.
Okay. Well, I mean, you're giving people what they want. Mm-hmm. And you also said what you're proud to serve. So how do you balance that? At what point do you say, okay, well, I'm going to make a judgment call about the coffees that we bring in, for example, as a roaster, and then we're going to also kind of, synthesize that with the, input from our customers. I guess that can only go so far before you say like, well, there are certain things we can't do or maybe wouldn't be proud to do. I mean, how do you draw that line, or do you?
It's just the way that I've done it is just talking to customers and listening to them. I had a customer last week, wanted a six shot cortado, right? And I kind of did a little head zing. I was like, a 6-shot cortado, ma'am? That is what you are wanting? And she's like, yeah, I would love that. I said, absolutely. And so it made her a 6-shot cortado, and it only had like half inch of milk on it, let me tell you.
Oh, yeah.
And gave it to her. She goes, this tastes really bad. I'm like, yeah, it does. She goes, you knew it would taste bad and you gave it to me? I said, well, that's what you asked for. And she goes, well, can you give me something different? I said, sure will. Let me tell you about this drink that we have. I think you'll like it better than that. And tell you what, if you don't like it, you don't got to pay for it. I have used that line so much when dealing with customers, because it's saying like, hey, I'm willing to take a loss making this drink for you in an attempt to give you what you're looking for, at least an idea of what you're looking for, right? And so, yeah, we have our quality. We have the coffees that we want to bring in. I love natural processed coffees. I'm a very rare breed nowadays, but I love it, right? And, we have never had a customer say, oh, man, when are you going to put a wash coffee on the grinders? They don't ask like that. They just say, what coffee is this, right? Because they've grown to trust us, because we have gone out of our way to say, hey, listen, This is the drink you got. You didn't like it. Let's make you this one. If you don't like it, you don't got to pay for it. What do you think? I have probably a 9 out of 10 success rate with that. I have maybe had one person ever tell me, yeah, dude, I didn't really like that either. And I said, no worries, dude. We have some great teas. We have really cold water. Do you like Topo Chico? Like, we always make sure that we're trying to at least serve them, give them a beverage of some sort, because that's why they're coming to a coffee shop. They're coming, the main reason to drink a cup of coffee, probably get some work done, meet with, a friend or two. And I think it's up to us to realize the job of barista, that title's really changed. It's not just about making coffee. More so, the word barista, I like to think of us more as acoustic bartenders, right? You go into a bar and you say, hey, I want to grab a drink, don't know what you got. And, the bartender will look at you and say, okay, cool. You want you a clear liquor or dark liquor type of person, right? You got to go through those questions with your bartender. What we'll do when somebody comes up to our shop and they'll say, man, I really don't know what I want to get. I don't really know what y'all do here. I'll say, no worries. Hey, do you want something with coffee or without coffee? They'll say, oh, with coffee. I say, okay, cool. You want milk or no milk? I could do some milk. All right. You want it sweet or not sweet? Well, let's do something not sweet. I'm like, cool. Do you want it hot or cold? Oh, let's do something cold. Awesome. I will go back and I will make them a drink that fits all of that criteria and give it to them. And they're sitting there. They know they got exactly the drink that they wanted and that they asked for. It's no longer about the type of coffee that they're getting, but it's about the experience that they're getting and the hospitality that they're getting that keeps them coming back. Right? If the quality of our coffees was so important, Starbucks wouldn't exist. Pete's wouldn't exist. That's terrible coffee.
Excellent
for
point,
coffee people. Right? It's not about them having the product that is just like, oh my gosh, no, it's because they're willing to sit there with you and say, okay, what are the million options that we have do you want today? And they will make it exactly the way that you want it made. They won't argue with you. They won't demonize you. They won't do any of that. Right? They'll sit there and they say, hey, let me try to serve you something that you want, because they understand that serving somebody, it is an opportunity. And that's something that I try to make sure I communicate with my entire staff is like, hey, we have an opportunity to serve people in this city. And that's a very almost religious thing for me in the city, is taking care of our neighbors, because these neighbors, man, this is a hard city. I have seen some of the strongest people in my life lose everything in this city. I have seen people lose it all. I have seen people lose their body, their mind, their soul. The city does something to you. It's hard. I had a customer that he worked on the top of the U.S. Bank building, and he had the cush job, making 6 figures a year. He would come in every morning to get a cup of coffee from me. And I saw him 2 years later, and he was living on the streets out of a tent. And I asked him what happened. It's like, well, my wife left me, lost my job, didn't have any other course of action, so I ended up here. This city will take some of the strongest, chew them up, and spit them out. And I think that us as coffee quotation professionals, right? However we want to classify ourselves, whether we're a barista or we're roasters or we're barbacks, right? Whatever professional that we are in that, we have an opportunity to look after our neighbors. Because if we're not doing that, we're not doing our job. At the very basic of coffee, it's all about hospitality.
Well, that was a great note to end on here for this Founder Friday curated edition. I think Andrew's heart and passion is just so contagious. I think the energy he has for caring for people is something that I hope we all can take and apply in our coffee bars. We certainly need a whole lot more of loving people, a whole lot more in coffee, whether they're staff or their customers. And we also need to give ourselves grace in the process as we do all of those things. So meeting people where they are, caring for our staff in our communities, caring for each other as a community of professionals, even across company lines. This is what makes this business worth being in my opinion. And how we move the industry forward into a more healthy, a vibrant, and fulfilling future is going to be based on all of the types of insights that you've heard from these guests featured on this episode today. So if you want to listen to the full episodes of all 4 of these past Founder Friday guests, go to the show notes and click on the links provided there. And if you have any questions, comments, or feedback from me about today's episode or any other episode of Keys to the Shop, feel free to email me, chris@keystotheshop.com. That's CHRIS @keystotheshop.com. And you can also reach out about Keys to the Shop consulting at that email address as well, chris@keystotheshop.com. And with that, that is the end of today's episode. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining me, for supporting the show. Don't forget to subscribe to Keys to the Shop. Share the show and the episodes with your friends and team. Have an amazing day. And as always, I hope that this episode has truly given you keys to the shop.